Step right up and join the most vibrant circus community in the world, circustalk.com. This is In Center Ring. I'm your host, Jonathan Lee Iverson. This free spirit is a soaring-bodied, bending adventurer whose peculiar talents have captivated audiences the world over. Her insatiable love for circus is only surpassed by her fierce and indomitable will. In Center Ring presents Samantha Panda.
Every circus artist I know, they sort of eviscerate the myth of you run away and join the circus. Right. I think the circus pulls you in. I really think it's a calling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a calling. And I feel like with circus performers, you end up creating a circus wherever you are. Oh, well, there are a couple of us here, and all of a sudden we've got a whole show put together. We had you sit down with a few people, you have a couple beers, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, I got to call this theater because we got to put this on now. It's not you create it. It's not so much running away to find it. It's there.
No, it's fascinating. And I know this is such an interesting time for all live entertainers, whether it be our brothers and sisters in theater or wherever. I mean, it's a very hard time. And it is a fascinating time to, have to pivot. I think we pivot well because we're creatives. But it's just challenging because, that whole part of what we do, where we breathe, where we have that safety space and where we really feel alive is just not feasible. And so now we have to recreate an entire new space. And some are really doing it. They're just going for it. I've seen some wonderful offerings online that have been really fascinating, really good. Some better than others, but it's a learning curve too. We're all learning how to use this new virtual space. And it is, I can imagine, especially for I call you all the more physical artists. I joke with everybody. I'm a ringmaster, so I get paid to dress well and run my mouth. I'm not in any danger.
You have figured out how to do that because that is the dream right there.
No, it's very safe. It's very safe. And you get to go around looking like you're a big shot. And that's about it. But I was reading up on you and you had a neck injury not too long ago.
Yeah, that would be almost 3 years. Well, it'll be 3 years like Halloween. That was in Bali, Indonesia. I was working for a resort show there. And the rig broke while I was doing a hoop back, and the whole thing came down. So, and whenever people hear this, they're like, "Oh, you fell, broke it," doing a show. I was like, "Yes, but it wasn't my fault." I didn't actually. No.
It's usually not.
Yeah. That was crazy. That was not great. Our stage was concrete, and it's Indonesia, which, I guess, they're going to cut corners because they can. And there's really no one kind of looking over their shoulders to make sure that they're following proper safety regulations. And as an artist, you can do the best you can. I can check the cable to make sure the cable's not frayed or kinked. I can check the stage and make sure that there's nothing on the stage. I can make sure that, I can see that people are, back in their seats and they're not rushing the stage or whatever, but I can't climb 10 meters to the top of my rig and make sure that that the grid's functioning properly. I just can't do those things. And we really shouldn't be expected to. That's not really my job.
No. But, our field is, everything is interdependent, and that's the beauty of circus really is the fact that, I depend on you, you depend on me. I knew artists who would not, if there wasn't a certain person rigging their equipment, they wouldn't perform. I knew artists like that. They would just, because that's how much they trusted certain individuals. And, I can't imagine how vulnerable you must have felt in that. I mean, I read some of the account, and I mean, just all you had to go through as far as just getting medical care.
Yeah, it was crazy. The company I worked for didn't want to cover my hospital stay or they didn't want to cover the surgery or anything unless I went to this one specific doctor in Bali. And I talked to him and I was like, oh, well, how many times have you done this surgery? And he was like, more than 5, but less than 10. And I was like, oh, that's not good enough for me. And then when I got to Taiwan, actually, that we had to pay for it out of our own pockets. We had to actually crowdfund to get there, to get the surgery. And I get to Taiwan, and we give him, my surgeon, the all the notes and the X-rays and the MRIs that we had taken in Indonesia. And then they did their own in Taipei. And my surgeon's like, yeah, he didn't even know what was wrong with you. Like, their MRI machines were so outdated that they missed a bunch of injury. Like, there was so much more that he actually had to do. So had I gone through with getting a surgery in Indonesia, it could have been, just so bad. Like, it could have been so detrimental. I could have never been able to walk again, let alone perform again. But we made the right.
You had some serious injuries too. I mean, I was reading on it, and I'm just like, it just makes me fall in love with gravity even more. I'm like, that's.
I don't love gravity.
I'm curious to know how you came to circus. What was the journey like for you?
So I did like dance and gymnastics as a kid, like most kids do, and was really into it. And then I actually stepped away from it for a while and got into more like traditional sports. I played soccer and I ran track, and I went to university on a track scholarship. But I always did performance and theater, and all through school I was doing arts and still doing these types of things like on my own time, doing handstands at track practice, and then my coach would yell at me because that's not why we were here, kind of thing. When I was in university, early in university, I was working at a bar, and the bar manager's wife was like, hey, I'm going to start this production company. We're doing shows, and I've seen you do handstands and all kinds of silly things like that, and like, do you think you're athletic, do you want to walk on stilts for me, and we'll do some acrobatic stuff, and I'll teach you how to do fire, and you can basically join my circus. And I was like, yeah, of course. So I got into it professionally when I was like a late teenager.
Okay.
19, 20.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was with her for a long time, and then I moved to China. Did some, English teaching work in China, and then quickly was like, this isn't really what I want to do. And once I was in China, after a few months, I got working with some shows over there, and basically from there just started bouncing around the world doing contracts and shows all over, mostly Asia and Europe for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. See, there it goes. It's like it calls to you. How wonderful. Obviously, you don't just do aerial work, you do contortion as well. And it reminds me of something a friend of mine, Veronica Blair, was saying to me, when she started, she's a fantastic aerialist. She's also the producer of the Uncle Junior project. And she said, when she started, you just had your one thing. You just had your one thing. But now you have to have, multiple acts. So was this a natural transition for you to get into contortion? Like, have you always been just really, have you always had a gift of flexibility, and it's just something that was just natural for you?
Yeah, I actually, I started with contortion.
Okay.
So I've always been very flexible, and like, having done gymnastics as a kid, I could do like handstands and those basic kind of handstand forearm stand, your basic contortion poses. And when I started doing shows, that was what I was most comfortable with. I'd not done much aerial stuff at that point. And I wasn't about to teach myself at that, having not been, that exposed to it when I started. So I did mainly contortion, and I did like fire breathing and fire eating, and then would make a fire contortion show.
Wow.
For a few years before I got into aerials, and I started aerial work with silk. And that was cool because I already had such a strong contortion base that I could take a lot of my ground acts, my contortion acts, and just put them up in the air. So like a lot of my aerial stuff too is just like, look how flexible I am,
Right.
7 meters in the air instead of on the ground.
Oh no, it makes it much more attractive and alluring. Again, this is why we love this craft so much, because it's ever evolving.
People are always creating these new things, new ideas. Yeah. I have a friend who he fabricates equipment, and he'll come up with things, and he's like, oh, I thought of this shape, and so I made it on an aerial to put up in the air. So here you go, you can have it and see what you can do with it. Great, this is super weird, but you've got to take all these little skills that you have and kind of, okay, what do I use for this type of equipment to create something? So it's always evolving, and you're always creating something new, which is really fun.
I love it. You know, you were saying that basically you're a lifelong athlete. So this is something you were always doing. You come from a family of athletes, or it's just something you just felt in yourself?
Yeah, I really don't come from a family of athletes. I'm pretty sure a lot of the flexibility and the athletics genetics come from my mother. I have a younger half brother who can do a lot of the same stuff I do. So he's very flexible and will come up with different things to play around with all the time. But she never really got into it. She never really did it. Her family, there are really no athletes, and I think I have a cousin who plays hockey or something. I don't really know, but really, I don't come from an athletic family. I've always been like, okay, I've got to move. I've got to do something. I've got to go. I've got to, and I'm very expressive. You know, you can see I'm covered in tattoos, and I just like, okay, I need an outlet to like create this thing and make it something, and that's just kind of been the way I've always been, which makes me kind of more of like the black sheep of the family a bit, but that's okay.
But you've had that space, I mean, I guess, at least with your mother, to have that expression, I can assume, to, you know, just really go for it. I mean, and I understand, you know, being a parent myself, I think the greatest feather in the cap of any parent is when they accept that this person they've produced is a fully realized being that you have to eventually just let go. And I think the best thing we can do as parents is just give a wonderful platform, a wonderful foundation, something to gird them, but what they are and who they are is going to be expressed. And so, I mean, I'm just assuming, I guess with your mother, at least with her, you know, you had that space to, you know what, this is, you know, your body is art.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mom's super supportive of, she is actually the one who like dyes my hair all kinds of crazy colors. And she has a few of the same tattoos that I do. It's funny. We have one that's in Chinese that we got in Taipei, and it says, I did it as close as I could to, I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good, from Harry Potter. But directly translated, it means, I swear I'll make trouble. And when my mom got it, she went back to the States after visiting me, and all of her friends were like, do you even know what that says? It could say something about chicken. I was like, my mom's like, no, my daughter can speak and read and write Chinese, so we know what it says. It's just silly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So you speak. All right. How long did you live over in China?
So I lived in China for about a year, and then I lived in Taiwan on and off for like 7 years. But I lived from Taiwan was kind of my home base. Then I did contracts in Indonesia. I did like 3 or 4 in Indonesia. I did Greece and Spain, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore. I bounced around Malaysia, and but Taipei was always my base, always home. I miss living in Taipei, and they haven't had a corona case in like 4 months. They're killing it over there, and we're sitting here in South Carolina, like trying to get masks today.
They really have a wonderful circus culture over there in Taiwan. Did you get a lot of training when you were there?
Yeah, I did. I actually worked in drag shows mostly in Taiwan, which was
Okay.
amazing. So it was this wonderful mix of um, drag culture, LGBTQ culture, circus culture, performance culture. We had this amazing show, and I was with that show for a few years. And like we would bring in girls from Thailand and from RuPaul's Drag Race, and put on these just spectacular events with aerials and contortion and pole dance and drag queens and um, I mean dancers and we had singers. It was this just vaudeville kind of amazing experience over there. So that's always been my main show. I always talk about myself, I call myself a drag probat. Yeah, that's like my just I think I started doing drag shows in 2013.
Mhm.
Was the first time I performed with a drag company, and my last drag show in Taipei was Halloween 2018, and that's when I moved back to the States. Was a couple days later, and it was like I just absolutely loved that kind of venue and platform. It was such a cool show. But yeah, we also had a lot of like, I worked in big top shows. I worked in kind of big theater shows. I worked in theme parks, and every time you work in a different show, they have a different style and different, so you're always learning new things and you're meeting new people. I did one contract in Jakarta where my entire cast was Romanian, except for me and like my other aerial partner was Maltese, and we had one girl from Moldova, and everyone else in the cast was Romanian. And their style of circus and performing is different. So we just had a lot of you're always learning and taking in
Right.
different things. So honestly, the best thing that ever happened to me as a performer is being able to travel and kind of like sample different things from around the world and say, okay, what can you utilize this? And this is how, they do shows in Greece. And so I'll take a piece of that. And this is how we do shows in Taiwan, and I'll take a piece of this. And this is how we do shows in South Korea and take a piece of this. And that's really how I got to kind of create my own artist persona, I guess.
No, I love it. That's all right.
Yeah.
And the name Samantha Panda. How did
Yeah. So Panda's kind of like a running gag nickname that I got when I was younger, because I would always be hurt.
Oh, wow.
Have bruises everywhere, and oh, you look like Panda. And then when I moved to Asia, it kind of like got a bit more like my mom was like, I'm just gonna call you Panda now. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna use that. I'm just gonna keep it. I like it. It's cute.
Yeah.
So I've just stuck with it for a while to where that's more what I'm recognized as. Like, no one knows my real last name, which is great. I keep it that way.
No, I
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
I like that. It reminds me of the great American boxer, middleweight legend, Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Yeah,
Now, a lot of people don't realize that's his legal name.
that's amazing.
He actually changed it to Marvelous Marvin Hagler because he was so pissed because every boxer would have a moniker, Sugar Ray Leonard or
Right.
Iron Mike Tyson, right? And he wanted them to introduce him as Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and so they would introduce Marvin Hagler. And so he went and legally got his name changed to Marvelous Marvin Hagler. So that's just the thought I had, and so they had to introduce him his legal name.
That's so great. I love fight sports too. I've actually worked really closely with them being overseas. I worked with UFC fighters, and I've done like events at MMA fights where they'd want some entertainment before a fight or like in between bouts. And so I've got to do a lot with, just funny you mentioned fight sports, and I have done so much with fight sports. It's pretty cool.
I see you're a girl after my own heart. I'm a huge fight fan. Huge
Yeah.
fight fan. Yeah, I was sort of like a weird boxing savant when I was a kid. I didn't box myself, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, I just knew a lot about the sport. It's how me and my dad bonded. And,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, I would read tons of magazines and, you know, on the fighters. And of course, I mean, my respect for prize fighters, be it MMA or boxing or whatever, is so high because I see the similarities with circus, definitely. I mean, you don't play those things. You don't play them. You are. And the danger is so high. The conditioning is just out of this world. And you really have to want to do that. I think you have to have a bit of crazy to do.
Right. And you have to have crazy to be a circus performer too.
Yeah.
I actually train jujitsu a lot. I find it's a really fun sport. And being a contortionist is almost cheating because they try to submit you. They're pulling your arm back and you're like, oh, that's not doing anything. But nice try. Or they'll try to punch you and you drop into a split and they're like, is this even legal? It is. But I tried
I can't win.
I tried Muay Thai for like 2 weeks, and I remember the first time I sparred with someone, this girl who had been doing it for a long time, and she punched me right in the face, and I took my gloves off. I was like, I'm so done. This is nope, not for me. Thanks, that was great.
That's what happened to me with boxing.
Yeah.
I
have to get hit here? No,
yeah,
thank you.
I was like, I thought it was like Rocky. I thought we were faking. It's so funny. I had a buddy of mine, and he reminded me recently when we were kids. We used to go in the park. I grew up on Central Park West. I mean, we used to live in a park in the summers, and we go out there. He was like an amateur boxer. And so we go out there and, you know, pound each other upside the head. You know, we'd slap box and stuff like that. And I mean, I was pretty okay, but I just hated, you know, you just hate getting hit. Your head is buzzing, and it's just not natural.
Who chooses to do this? These people are something wrong with them. Yeah.
Right. You know, I love the fact that, you know, you have this freedom with yourself and in your body. And, you know, I think it's been such a grand tradition in circus. And I'm always careful in speaking to the narrative of others. I can only speak to what I've observed, and I always welcome correction. But what I always observed with women in circus, especially where I worked with Ringling Brothers, and I think the history corroborates it, is that I think women have always been able to have this space to be fully realized. You know? I've always talked about just the wonders of just observing my colleagues. I used to see women who would, I'll never forget this, and she'll laugh if she's ever watching this, but she was an aerialist. She was a flying trapeze artist, her and her husband. Her husband's like one of the greatest trapeze artists in the world. He does a quadruple. And so she had her second baby and she got her body back. She, you know, trained herself back. And I remember watching her, she breastfed her daughter, put her to the side, climbed up in a rig, went up there, did like a double or whatever. And, you know, and they finished practicing. And this was after a show. They came back down, everybody gets, you know, does what they do. And then I think they went to a club later that night. And I said, that is like so, you know, that's that circus feminine thing, you know, where it's like you can just be fully yourself, you know, and I've always enjoyed that. And for me personally, I'll tell you, as a man, it caused me to check certain things in how I saw women, being in that kind of company all the time, seeing women alongside men, even leading the company. My wife was actually my boss on the show. And yeah, I mean, she was the production manager of the show. And my daughter loved doing that. Every time she would introduce her, she said, "But Daddy's the ringmaster, but my mom's the boss."
Yeah.
You know, so we enjoy that. But you know, could you address that? You know, about just that liberty you enjoy in your workspace.
Yeah, so, you know, I've actually, and I do a lot of like burlesque as well. Burlesque and circus have really recently
yes
collided worlds. So I've done a lot of burlesque and I've done burlesque contracts, and it's so empowering just to be able to be like, I'm so confident in myself and my own body that I'm going to go up here and I'm going to show everyone just how confident I am in that. And you know, it's not an invitation for anyone to get entitled to more than I give them, which is something that I think people have to learn. Like, you know, if I'm showing this to you on stage, then that's a gift to you, or that's, you know, what you paid your ticket price for, whatever. If I'm, you know, walking down the street in a little pair of hot pants, like, that's different, but I'm doing it because I like it, I enjoy it, and this is what I'm comfortable in. You know, we as artists, we work very hard on creating ourselves and our art, and our bodies are a lot of that. And so for some people, what makes them feel empowered and comfortable is, you know, wearing a crop top and short shorts out in public. And for some people, it's not. It's, you know, they want to be fully covered. And both of those things are completely and perfectly acceptable and okay, because everything should be down to an individual. But like, if you are in an artist community, like if you are in a circus, like you are going to see every part of everybody and things that you didn't know existed on other people. You're like, wow, I didn't think my body had that, but yours definitely does. Like, that's crazy. Good for you. It's just part of the world we live in. And, you know, I've gotten into a backstage before, where we having a special event tonight and your costumes are on your dressing room table, and you get in there and the costume is literally a can of body paint, and you're like, well, here we go then. Like, I was expecting more, but I'm totally fine with this. Like, it's great. Like, this is what we do. We're kind of exhibitionists all the time. And, you know, it goes back, like, for someone to do something as normal as breastfeed their daughter and then go do trapeze practice and then go hang out in a club and wear whatever they want and do whatever they want. Like, that's all just different parts of who you are they make you individual, they make you comfortable, they make you happy, and that's how you should behave. And it's really no one else's business what you choose to do with your own body.
Yeah, I thank you for that point, because I mean, that's really what it comes down to, I believe. And that's something that a lot of us have to learn. And I'll say it, especially men. You know, you're not entitled to this because, you know, okay, this may be very attractive or what have you. I mean, there's, you know, a person has a right to that. And honestly, I mean, it's something I empathize with deeply. You know, there's a wonderful scholar by the name of Dr. Tommy Curry. He wrote a book called The Man Not, and he addresses sexual violence of Black boys and men. And the reason why I bring that up is because there's this interesting correlation between women and Black male bodies. I think a lot of the violations that we see in our society, they just come from these contorted, perverse ideas people have of others. I mean, that's why we create these narratives. So that way, you know, that's why we call women outside their names, and you become these things, you know, and you know, I just see you as a piece of flesh, because if I'm forced to actually see you as a fully realized human being, I might treat you different.
It's strange when, you know, you have people who suddenly, like, they have an opinion on you, and they want to make sure you know, like, I've gotten a lot of weird hate mail about, like, being trashy, or they don't like my tattoos, or I'm too skinny, and I'm just like, who are you to have this opinion? Like, why does that affect me? Like, why should I care that you don't like my tattoos? But I like my tattoos very much. So.
Right. But, you know, on that, I want us to go down that road of that strange encounter you had. Now, you're a Myrtle Beach native?
I don't really have like a place I'm from. I've lived so many places. It's really hard to be like, this is home. But for now, Myrtle Beach is home. I would consider myself local.
Okay. So here you are on Myrtle Beach, you know, just beaching out, and you have this incredible encounter. I like I'll have you explain it, because when I saw it, it was just part of me went, this has to be staged. This is so just weird, you know?
So weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to the beach with my partner and my brother's fiance. So I call her my sister-in-law. So the three of us went to the beach. My partner goes surfing. My sister and I are listening to music, and some weird events happened throughout the day. We had an encounter with a guy who was kind of being creepy, and it ended up getting a little bit heated, and we noticed he was talking to some women around him. But again, we're just going to mind our own business. We want him to mind his own business. We're going to mind our own business. Didn't really think anything of it. And then after he leaves the beach, maybe about 10 minutes later, a couple of police show up on the beach. And my partner sees them. He doesn't know what's going on. He's surfing, so he comes out of the water. And my sister and I didn't even notice because we had our backs to where they were. And so the police come up to us. They're like, "What's the problem, ladies?" And we were like, "I don't know. I didn't call you. We don't have a problem." And they were like, "No, you guys, basically, you can't be wearing what you're wearing on the beach." I had on a thong bikini. I had a thong bikini bottom on and a surf bikini top. So, like, actually very covered up top. And then my sister had on a thong bikini bottom and a white t-shirt. And it gotten wet. So, like, if you were up close to her, it would be see-through. If you were minding your own business, it's not. It was just a tank top. So they're yelling at it. They're telling us we can't wear our bikinis. And I asked the police officer, I said, "Can you please show me a law or where it's written that, kind of has a dress code or what I can and can't wear?" And he said no. So I said, "Okay, we're done here and I'm going to leave." And I turned to leave and he jumped on me. This cop grabbed me. He grabbed my arms, threw them behind my back, dragged me back to him, and his partner are trying to wrestle me into handcuffs. And that was when my partner started filming. So we had about 30 seconds of interaction with these cops before the video had started. Yeah. So at that moment, my partner's like, "Okay, great, we got to get this done. I've got to make them accountable for whatever's going to happen because this is insane." They kept me detained, kind of dragged me around the beach. The one cop kept pulling my arms around and then would yell at me when I would try to keep my balance or be up against him. And he tried to insinuate that I was on drugs. He kept saying for me to stop tweaking. Stop tweaking. I was on fucking tweaking. Like, I've never been on meth. I don't know what you're talking about. Then he tried to tell my partner that he was going to take him to jail because he was asking questions, and it was insane. They kept looking in their books, in their law books, for the law we were breaking.
Right to it. Nudity display of specific nominal parts, specific sexual areas of the shall be unlawful for any person to appear in the nude on any public beach access to the public waters or any public property in the view of the public.
Cool. We're not nude, man. Like, I'm in a bathing suit that I bought at the store. Like, right over there, bought that at this store. How are you going to tell me I can't wear a bathing suit on a beach? Like, this is crazy. Eventually, they had to call a supervisor in, so they're just like, you would think that I punched one of these police officers in the face or something, but really all I did was wear a thong. What really bothered me was that it was a woman who called the police on me for wearing this bathing suit. So, when you do something like that, the only thing that can happen is you're putting someone else in harm's way. Like, nothing good could have come up with police showing up. Like, she would have had a better, reaction if she would have come over to us and said something. Said, "Hey, first of all, I say it would have been better. I probably would have been like, mind your own business. What are you doing in my space? Like, I can wear whatever I want. I'm not hurting you. I didn't even talk to you. I'm not looking at you. Like, do the same. Give me the same courtesy." Maybe that would have been it. Maybe she would have learned something, but instead she called the cops in front of her daughter, had us get in trouble and put me in handcuffs and had me dragged around by these big men and yelled at by police officers for this ordinance that is very arbitrary. It doesn't say, how. It basically says, I think they said you can't have any anatomical parts showing.
Do you know what anatomical areas are?
I do know what anatomical areas are.
expression of the buttocks.
No, it's not. Okay, well then there's other girls that have their cheeks exposed. So do the same thing to them.
Fingers are anatomical parts. Like,
Right.
do I have to hide that? That just means a part of your anatomy. Like, gotta cover my nose. I
They
didn't.
kept saying anatomical like they discovered a big word. I looked up the statement you wrote to the, as you called her, Karen.
Yeah.
I love the statement you wrote to her, and I have to read it. I have to, because I want everybody to hear this. I mean, what you said here was just complete fire, and it's so poignant. You said you have allowed a 105-pound woman to get rushed, aggressively grabbed, manhandled, and cuffed. You allowed 2 women to be publicly slut-shamed on a beach for their bathing suits. And worst of all, you showed your daughter that her body is something she should be ashamed of and could be detained for. You showed her that a man can harm a woman over the way her body is viewed by other people. You have objectified a female body that does not belong to you and have showed your daughter that those actions are acceptable. There's many ways that could have been done. I mean, if it offended you that much, first of all, it's a beach. You could always leave. You know, I mean,
I've gotten so many people who write me messages, and I mean, every day I get just inundated with these messages of, well, you don't respect yourself and you don't respect anyone else, and you think this is okay, and why don't you think of the kids on the beach? And my response, if I choose to respond, it's usually I either just say, nah, mind your own business. It's free. It doesn't cost you any money to mind your own business on the beach.
Right.
It's free.
And there was no lewd behavior. It's a beach.
Yeah.
Like, people are always in bathing suits on a beach.
She told, the woman who called told the police that we were soliciting videos. I was like,
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
where? Like, how were we soliciting videos? Like, we were sitting on our towels and in the sand with a speaker, listening to Beyonce, because she's amazing.
She was probably pissed off about Beyonce.
Beyonce, terrible, great role model.
Right.
But we were listening to Beyonce. Like, we weren't even, like, both performers. She's a performer as well. We're both dancers. Like, if we wanted to dance, we could have danced. I'd gone viral once before when I broke my neck, which was not the most awesome thing to go viral and be weirdly famous for. And then this again, and this has been much bigger than that. It's been crazy. And, it seems like I go out in public sometimes here and I'm like, thank God we have a mask ordinance in place right now, because I can at least cover my face and not get recognized by absolutely everybody. But I've been recognized at like the grocery store and like Baskin Robbins, and weren't you that girl on the beach? I'm like, oh yeah, thanks for the reminder. That was me. If you have anything negative to say, here's my email address.
Right. I think it has something to do with the climate too. I mean, with policing, the current state of policing, and we're at this again and again. And we're seeing the behavior all over the country, and it hasn't gotten any better. But I mean, your incident really caused me to think about not only the racial tensions that occur, but of course the policing of female bodies, the misogyny, that there's a misogynistic culture that isn't always addressed with regards to policing. I mean, the cases are just too numerous to even get into. I mean, you see young women being body slammed by these burly men, being pushed, under the ground, ending up with contusions. And I read a few times, there was a woman who was literally pulled out of her house, dragged across her lawn, nude during her menstrual cycle. They're looking, of course, they're looking for the wrong person. No respect, and then, you look at, of course, there's studies that talk about the high rate of domestic violence in police families. And so there's clearly something wrong in police culture, you know, and I don't buy this, the few bad apples scenario. This is a culture.
If I go, know someone who's a police officer on an individual level, like, I'm sure you're a fine person, but, at the same time, like, you're part of a system that literally trains people to be predators. They're training police officers to hunt other people. They're training them to, get these bad guys. Like, they're the civilians are the others, and they're lesser. And especially if you're, if you're Black, if you're a person of color, if you're a woman. And like, we address this, my sister and I have done a couple like blogs and podcast things that are just on my YouTube. And we address too, like, if we weren't white women, what would that interaction have been like? I'm very aware of the privilege I have to be able to tell a police officer, like, F you, leave me alone. But had I been a Black woman and said that, like, what would that police officer have done? I know that being a white woman has allowed me to, to be argumentative with that police officer there, because they were in the wrong. They're not supposed to be that aggressive. They're not supposed to just detain you for no reason. And I've had a lot of people argue with me about, defunding the police and these things. And I'm like, look, you think that I want to, abolish everything completely. And I want, in my perfect world, this would all be restructured. You guys, police need new training. They need, also, they're doing way too much. You don't need to call police officers on women on a beach in bathing suits. There has to be someone else you can bring in first. You've got these cops who have too many things on their plates, and then they're going to handle these types of calls the same way they're going to handle some violent offender, because they're in that mindset all the time. So there's no, if they need to go de-escalate someone who's been abused, or if they have to go get someone who's OD'd on drugs, like, they can't treat that person violently. They need to treat that person with respect or with kindness and calmness. And that type of training is what they need. And they need more support from different places. Different social workers and different departments need to be created to handle some of these things that the police absolutely should not be doing. And, when your job description is to hunt other people, you're going to treat those people like they're your prey. And that's not okay. And that, to me, is, this whole, movement against the police, especially the way that they treat Black people, it's very, very important. And it can't just be overlooked with, a few bad apples. We need to absolutely completely reform the entire system. One of the biggest things that I'm working with lawyers on is changing these laws that are damaging to people's bodies and, degrading to women, and basically a waste of police resources. They don't need to exist. So that's what we're doing right now in Myrtle Beach, is working on changing laws. Listen,
I applaud you, and definitely your courage, because you have to deal with the blowback. And it's really fascinating to see how there's segments of society that are just relentless in turning a blind eye to it, and are even supportive of it, no matter how ugly it is, no matter how absolutely stupid it is. From that woman who called initially, to the people who are just sending you these ugly emails or making comments. And so they weaponize the police and they weaponize social media. We're sort of at this strange crossroads of people who are so adamant to not see us evolve and progress.
Basically, it all comes down to just take care of yourself and be kind to others, mind your own business. As long as you're not hurting anyone, you do you. But this person's got tattoos, and what about the children? And this person's Black and scary, and what about the children? And this person is, Muslim, and I'm Christian, so they must be a terrorist. What should that? I take care of myself. I don't hurt anyone. I go about my business. I try to be happy. I try to be kind. And why isn't that enough? Why do you have to tell me what to wear, what to look like? And if you teach your children these types of things, of how to just be kind without expecting things in return, and how to treat people with respect, without expecting them to give you something back. They're going to grow up to be better people. They're going to grow up to not be bothered by everyone so much. Just let people live.
Mm.
But this kind of like hard-rooted tradition, which I hate tradition. It's the worst. It's the worst excuse for keeping something alive. Like, we're just going to do this because we always have been. That's stupid.
Right.
Why? Oh, my tradition says we have to do this, but it's detrimental to this group of people. Yeah, but it's always been that way. Well, we should change it.
Right.
Even like in circuses, look at how our art form has evolved. Things change and they become more inclusive and they become more expressive and bigger and more daring. And that's, on a different scale. You can just look at how like our show has evolved, how, humanity evolves. Like, we should all just be continuing to create new things and be new things and make the world a better, different, weirder place.
I love that. I love that. Oh, we have to end on that. I love that. Oh, man. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, she's the high-flying contortionist wonder, Samantha Panda.
Black experience in circuses go back hundreds of years, and we do it with our own style. The circus has been a microcosm of the outside world. Many of the same prejudices that you see in the outside world are present in the circus.
So it's moving past the vision or the limited vision that the society has for you and stepping into the talent and skill that you have to go forward as a performer.
The circus is a vast international community, and there's only one place to connect for jobs, events, the latest news, and so much more. circustalk.com. Join today.